Public confrontations have a unique power. They capture attention instantly, they spark emotions, and they create moments that people can't stop talking about. The world has seen countless interviews and TV appearances, but there's something electrifying about a clash that happens in real time, unfiltered, raw, and impossible to edit out. That's exactly what unfolded when Meghan Markle found herself face to face with Howard Stern on The View. The stage was set for a standard discussion, but what the audience got was a confrontation that quickly turned into a defining television moment. It all started calmly, with Meghan addressing her usual talking points about family, privacy, and the constant pressures of living under the global spotlight. She spoke with her usual poise, carefully choosing words and framing her story the way she always does. But sitting across from her was Howard Stern, a man known for speaking his mind with no filters, no hesitation, and no concern for backlash. His reputation has been built on asking the questions no one dares to ask and saying the things most people only whisper. That dynamic alone created an air of tension before the first challenging remark even left his mouth. Howard wasted no time. Within minutes, he challenged Meghan's narrative, questioning her comments and pointing out contradictions that many critics had raised in the past. His tone wasn't polite or softened for television. It was blunt, sharp, and designed to pierce through carefully crafted answers. The audience, both in the studio and at home, could feel the energy shift. Meghan's smile faltered, her posture stiffened, and the exchange turned from a calm conversation into something far more confrontational. The crowd reacted audibly, gasping and murmuring as Howard pushed further. It wasn't just a disagreement, it was a direct challenge to Meghan's credibility. She tried to maintain her composure, but every word she spoke seemed to be met with an even stronger rebuttal. Viewers could sense the discomfort growing, and that's exactly what kept them glued to their screens. Public confrontations thrive on that fine line between control and collapse, and here, both sides were fighting to hold their ground. For Meghan, the stakes were high. Every move she made, every response she gave was going to be analyzed by millions of people online. For Howard, the goal was different. He wasn't looking to protect an image, he was there to speak his mind and expose what he felt was the truth. That clash of intentions made the confrontation even more gripping. One side trying to protect, the other trying to provoke. It was reality TV at its rawest, but this time it wasn't scripted, it was happening live. The most shocking moment came when Meghan attempted to dismiss one of Howard's remarks by saying it was rooted in tabloid rumors. Instead of backing down, Howard doubled down, citing her own previous interviews as evidence. That reversal caught her off guard and left the studio audience erupting in whispers and reactions. Meghan paused, searching for the right words, but the damage was done. The moment of hesitation gave viewers the impression that she was rattled, that her usual control had slipped away under the pressure. Public confrontations like this are memorable because they reveal something raw and unguarded. When cameras are rolling and millions are watching, there's no room to hide behind perfectly prepared statements. People crave authenticity, even if it comes in the form of conflict. That's why this moment didn't just make waves in the studio, it spread across social media within minutes. Clips went viral, debates broke out, and suddenly everyone had an opinion on whether Meghan was unfairly attacked or whether Howard was simply saying what others were too afraid to say. The psychology behind why people love watching these confrontations is simple. It's drama, but it's real. There's no script, no second take. The unpredictability keeps viewers on edge. Will someone snap? Will there be a walk-off? Will the tension boil over into something unforgettable? Those questions keep audiences hooked, and in this case, the Meghan versus Howard clash delivered exactly that kind of energy. It's also worth noting how these moments affect reputations. Meghan, already a polarizing figure, left the confrontation with even more critics questioning her authenticity. Howard, on the other hand, was praised by some for having the courage to ask hard questions, while others accused him of crossing the line. The confrontation didn't end when the cameras stopped. It sparked conversations that lasted for days, proving that live clashes have an impact far beyond the moment itself. From a viewer's perspective, this kind of public showdown is the ultimate hook. People may tune in for curiosity, but they stay for the tension, the unpredictability, and the possibility of witnessing history in real time. In an age where everything can be rehearsed, filtered, and polished, a raw confrontation feels rare, and that's exactly why it commands attention. When Meghan Markle sat across from Howard Stern, she probably expected tough questions. What she didn't expect was to be caught off guard, challenged so directly, and left in a position where her usual calm responses weren't enough. And that's what made it unforgettable. A confrontation that unfolded live, unedited, and completely real. The kind of moment audiences will replay, analyze, and argue about for years to come. When two strong personalities collide in front of a live audience, it's more than just an interview, it's a spectacle. That's exactly what happened when Meghan Markle went head-to-head with Howard Stern. The energy in the room was unlike anything else. Meghan, polished, careful, and determined to present her version of events, versus Howard, bold, unfiltered, and never afraid to say what others tiptoe around. It was bound to create sparks, but no one expected the clash to become one of the most talked about moments on television. From the start, Meghan carried herself with confidence. She's mastered the art of speaking in a calm, composed tone, painting herself as someone misunderstood, someone constantly battling against unfair treatment by the media and even her own family. It was familiar ground for her, the narrative she's been defending for years. But across from her sat Howard Stern, a man who has made his career by dismantling narratives, cutting straight through polished answers, and confronting his guests with the questions they least want to hear. Howard leaned in early, wasting no time. He asked the questions others avoid, poked at the contradictions in Meghan's stories, and didn't soften his words for television politeness. His bluntness struck immediately. The audience reacted with sharp gasps, caught between fascination and discomfort. Meghan's smile stayed in place, but the tension in her eyes betrayed the unease creeping in. Stern was doing what he does best, removing the mask and forcing raw reactions. As the conversation moved forward, Meghan tried to maintain control. She spoke of struggles, of resilience, of a world that constantly scrutinizes her every move. But Howard interrupted. He didn't nod along, he didn't politely accept the packaged story. Instead, he challenged her. He cited interviews, past comments, and moments where her words didn't align. And each time Meghan tried to sidestep, Howard pressed harder. It wasn't hostility, it was truth colliding with spin. The tension built like a slow burn. Meghan's carefully chosen words suddenly didn't seem so strong under the weight of Stern's directness. Every time she tried to steer the conversation back to her comfort zone, Howard pulled it back into confrontation. The live audience could feel the stakes rising. This wasn't a friendly chat anymore. This was a battle of credibility. Then came the turning point. Meghan dismissed one of Howard's questions as nothing more than tabloid chatter. She brushed it off with a practiced wave of her hand, but Howard wasn't letting it slide. He fired back with her own past statements, reminding her that these weren't rumors, they were her words. The studio buzzed with murmurs. Meghan hesitated for just a second, searching for the perfect response. That pause was all it took. In the world of live television, a moment of silence can feel like a collapse, and to the audience, it looked like Howard had landed a blow. Viewers at home felt the electricity of that exchange. It wasn't about who was right or wrong, it was about the rawness of the moment. Two people, unfiltered, unedited, clashing live with the world watching. Meghan's polished armor was cracking, and Howard was relentless in pointing it out. The unpredictability of not knowing what would happen next kept audiences locked in. Would Meghan walk out? Would Stern push too far? That suspense made every second unforgettable. For Meghan, the confrontation was damaging. She thrives in controlled environments where narratives are carefully crafted and delivered with precision. But in a battle against Howard Stern, control is impossible. Every attempt to steer the conversation was blocked, every soft answer met with a harder question. The clash exposed her vulnerability in a way few interviews ever have. For Howard, the exchange only reinforced his reputation. He was unapologetic, fearless, and unwilling to play by the usual media rules. To his supporters, it was proof that he remains one of the only figures in media willing to say what others won't. To his critics, it was harsh and perhaps too aggressive, but love him or hate him, everyone was talking about him afterward. The viral storm that followed was inevitable. Clips flooded social media, debates exploded in comment sections, and headlines plastered the confrontation everywhere. Some defended Meghan, insisting she was unfairly cornered. Others celebrated Howard, praising him for holding her accountable. The split in public opinion made the moment even bigger, fueling days of coverage and endless discussions. What makes this clash so powerful is its authenticity. In a media landscape full of rehearsed answers and pre-approved questions, audiences crave something real. This was raw, it was unscripted. It was the kind of confrontation you can't look away from, and that's why people kept rewatching it, dissecting it, and sharing it over and over again. The psychology is simple. People love conflict when it feels genuine. It's the unpredictability, the tension, the possibility that anything could happen. Watching Meghan Markle and Howard Stern collide was like watching two worlds that were never supposed to meet. One represents control, branding, and narrative building. The other represents chaos, blunt honesty, and provocation. Put them in the same room and the result was inevitable, a fiery clash that left both shaken in different ways. In the end, the confrontation didn't resolve anything. Meghan left with her critics louder than before. Howard walked away with his reputation intact, maybe even stronger. But the real winner was the audience. They witnessed a moment of television history, a clash so raw that it transcended the usual back and forth of celebrity interviews. It was drama, but it was real. And that's the lasting power of Howard Stern versus Meghan Markle. Not just an interview, not just an argument, but a spectacle that reminded people why they watch live television in the first place. For the unscripted, the unpredictable, and the unforgettable moments where two worlds collide and nothing goes as planned. Humiliation is one of the most powerful emotions to witness because it instantly pulls the audience into the story. People don't just watch it, they feel it. That's why when Meghan Markle faced Howard Stern live, what unfolded wasn't just an interview, it became a moment defined by embarrassment, vulnerability, and the kind of raw television that no one could look away from. It began as any other appearance. Meghan walked on set with her usual calm composure, smiling, graceful, prepared to tell her story once again. She had done this countless times, repeating her perspective about the challenges she's faced, the scrutiny, and the unfair treatment by the media. For Meghan, this was familiar ground, but she wasn't sitting across from just another interviewer. She was sitting across from Howard Stern, a man who has built his career by being brutally honest, unafraid of backlash, and willing to challenge anyone no matter how famous. From the first few exchanges, it became clear this was going to be different. Meghan delivered her carefully chosen words, but Howard wasn't buying into the polished narrative. He interrupted, he pressed, he pushed back, and with every sharp question, the confidence on Meghan's face began to fade. The humiliation angle started to take shape, not because Howard was shouting or insulting, but because he exposed cracks in the image she worked so hard to protect. The studio audience felt it immediately. You could hear the gasps, the quiet laughs, the murmurs that ripple through a crowd when someone on stage suddenly looks less certain, less powerful. Meghan tried to brush off Howard's comments, but her dismissal only fueled him more. He countered her statements with evidence, with her own past interviews leaving her cornered. The pause in her response, the slight hesitation, those were the moments the audience latched onto. In live television, silence can be louder than words. What makes humiliation so captivating is that it's universal. Everyone knows what it feels like to be caught off guard, to be exposed, to be left without a perfect answer. Watching someone as famous and polished as Meghan Markle experience that in real time made the moment even more intense. For years, she has tried to control the narrative. On this day, Howard Stern shattered that control, and the entire world got to see it. The humiliation wasn't in loud insults or personal attacks. It was in the subtle but undeniable shift of power. Meghan walked in holding the upper hand, but with every push from Stern, the balance tipped. She smiled less, her voice tightened, her argument stumbled. Howard, meanwhile, grew sharper, more confident, feeding off the tension. The audience wasn't just watching an interview, they were watching a takedown. The most humiliating moment came when Meghan attempted to deflect by claiming one of Howard's points was just tabloid nonsense. Normally that line works. It dismisses critics, frames her as the victim of false media, and usually earns sympathy. But this time Stern didn't let it slide. He came back immediately, pointing out her own previous words as proof. The audience erupted, some laughing, some gasping, and Meghan had no immediate counter. That single exchange defined the humiliation. Her go-to defense had failed, and everyone saw it happen live. Humiliation resonates because it strips away the image celebrities try so hard to maintain. People are used to seeing Meghan poised, calm, and in control. Seeing her flustered, caught in hesitation, and unable to dominate the conversation gave viewers something real. That reality is what spreads online, what goes viral, what keeps people glued to replays and clips. It's raw, it's human, and it makes the powerful look powerless, even if only for a moment. As the interview went on, Meghan tried to recover. She straightened her posture, forced the smile back, and tried to redirect the conversation. But the audience could tell the damage was already done. Howard had broken through, and the humiliation lingered in the air. Every answer that followed felt less convincing, less commanding, because viewers had already seen the vulnerability. Once that mask slips, it's impossible to unsee. Afterward, the humiliation angle dominated the conversation. Social media lit up with clips of Meghan's pause, her faltering words, and Stern's sharp rebuttals. Headlines painted it as a takedown. Some defended her, arguing she was treated unfairly. Others said she finally faced the kind of questions no one else dared to ask. But regardless of opinion, everyone agreed on one thing: she had been humiliated live, and the world saw it. For Meghan, the consequences were heavy. Every time she appears in public, she tries to strengthen her narrative. But this moment weakened it. For Howard, it was validation of his style: fearless, unfiltered, unapologetic. He walked away with even more credibility as someone willing to hold anyone accountable, no matter how high profile. And for viewers, it was unforgettable. Humiliation is one of the strongest hooks for watch time. People don't just click once, they rewatch, they share, they dissect every expression, every word, every stumble. It creates endless engagement because it sparks emotion, sympathy, satisfaction, outrage, amusement. Everyone feels something, and that's what keeps them invested. In the end, the clash between Meghan Markle and Howard Stern will be remembered not for its polite conversation, but for the humiliation that defined it. It showed how quickly control can slip, how fast confidence can crack, and how live television still has the power to create moments that echo far beyond the stage. For Meghan, it was a tough lesson in how dangerous unfiltered encounters can be. For Stern, it was another victory in a long career of confrontations. And for the audience, it was a spectacle, raw, real, and impossible to look away from. That's the lasting image. Meghan Markle, usually untouchable, humbled in front of millions, and Howard Stern walking away as the man who made it happen. The humiliation angle isn't just a detail of the story, it's the reason this moment will be replayed and talked about for years to come. Every heated confrontation begins with a spark, a single moment that shifts the energy from calm conversation into undeniable tension. In the clash between Meghan Markle and Howard Stern, that spark was the triggering incident. It was the instant when a normal exchange flipped into something raw, uncomfortable, and impossible to ignore. Without it, the interview might have been just another polished appearance. With it, it became one of the most unforgettable moments of live television. At first, everything seemed routine. Meghan appeared on stage smiling, composed, radiating confidence in front of the cameras. She had done this countless times, repeating familiar themes about the pressures of fame, the intrusion of the media, and the struggles she faced behind closed doors. The audience was listening, nodding along, expecting another carefully managed discussion. And then Howard Stern decided to challenge her directly. It wasn't a loud outburst or a dramatic insult, it was a pointed question cutting straight to the heart of her narrative. Instead of accepting her story at face value, he demanded clarity. He asked her about comments she had made in the past, statements that didn't line up with what she was saying now. He didn't smile politely, he didn't soften the blow, he pressed her with blunt honesty. And in that exact moment, the atmosphere shifted. The triggering incident was born not from aggression, but from truth colliding with a carefully maintained image. Meghan tried to respond smoothly, but the hesitation in her voice betrayed her. She brushed it off as tabloid talk, hoping to shut down the challenge, but Howard was relentless. He shot back with her own words as evidence, refusing to let her slip away. The studio filled with gasps and murmurs. Viewers leaned closer to their screens. This was no longer a simple interview. It was a confrontation. That single exchange lit the fire. The audience could sense it, and Meghan could feel it too. Her smile faltered just enough for people to notice. Her polished armor cracked ever so slightly, and the cameras caught it all. That's the power of a triggering incident. It flips the script in an instant, changing the tone of the entire interaction. From that point forward, Meghan was on the defensive. Every word she spoke carried more weight, every pause felt longer, every shift in tone more noticeable. Howard, energized by the reaction, leaned in harder. He challenged her claims, cut through her attempts to redirect, and made sure the spotlight stayed on the inconsistencies. What had started as a calm conversation had transformed into a battle of credibility. For the audience, this was the moment they came for, even if they didn't know it beforehand. Viewers don't remember the routine answers, they remember the sparks, the moments where control slips away and something real breaks through. The triggering incident gave them that. It was raw, it was unpredictable, and it had the entire room buzzing with anticipation. The fascinating part about triggering incidents is that they seem small at first. One question, one phrase, one unexpected reaction, and suddenly the atmosphere changes. In Meghan's case, it was a dismissal that backfired. She tried to shut Stern down, and instead he doubled down. That reversal is what made it unforgettable. Had she answered differently, had she brushed it off with ease, the moment might have passed unnoticed. But her pause, her stumble, her hesitation, that's what made it stick. And humiliation grew out of it. Once the triggering moment cracked her composure, the rest of the interview was marked by an unshakable tension. She never fully regained control. Stern kept the pressure on, the audience kept reacting, and Meghan was left fighting uphill for the remainder of the exchange. That's why triggering incidents matter. They set the tone, they decide who's leading and who's scrambling. Afterward, this single moment became the centerpiece of every headline, every viral clip, every debate online. People replayed it over and over, analyzing the expressions, the tone, the silence between words. They didn't just watch it once, they shared it, commented on it, turned it into a talking point. Social media thrives on triggering incidents because they create instant drama, instant division, and endless engagement. For Meghan, this was devastating. She walked into the studio prepared to reinforce her narrative. Instead, she walked out with people questioning it more than ever. For Howard, it was validation. The triggering incident showed why he has remained relevant for decades, because he isn't afraid to spark uncomfortable moments that reveal something raw. The psychology of why audiences love these incidents is simple. People crave unpredictability. They want the moment when the script breaks, when the polished exterior crumbles, when something real sneaks out. Watching Meghan Markle, a woman so used to controlling the story, stumble in front of Howard Stern gave viewers exactly that. It was relatable, it was dramatic, and it was unforgettable. Even days later, the triggering incident was still being dissected. Was Stern too harsh? Was Meghan unprepared? Did the audience witness genuine truth or just a clash of egos? The questions didn't matter as much as the fact that people couldn't stop talking about it. That's the hallmark of a true triggering moment. It doesn't just live in the broadcast, it lives in the conversation long after. In the end, the clash between Meghan Markle and Howard Stern will always be remembered for that spark. The triggering incident that turned a simple interview into a confrontation, that shifted the power dynamic, that exposed vulnerability where none was expected. One moment was all it took to change the story forever. And for audiences, it was everything they hoped for: raw, unscripted, and impossible to look away from. That's why the triggering incident is the heartbeat of this clash. Without it, the interview would have faded into the background. With it, it became a cultural flashpoint, a moment replayed, debated, and remembered as the spark that lit the fire.